Folks, this is not a drill. It may be that we have found some lost Doctor Who episodes, specifically William Hartnell era Doctor Who episodes. Now, The Observer has got this story. Lost Doctor Who episodes found, but owner is reluctant to hand them to the BBC. As Sci-Fi Show's 60th anniversary nears, a collector pleads for BBC to offer amnesty to those with recordings discarded by the corporation. For Doctor Who lovers, they are the missing crown jewels, lost episodes of the first series of the TV sci-fi drama shown in the 1960s, but now film recordings of not just one, but two of the early adventures, both featuring the first Doctor, William Hartnell, have been found in Britain by amateur sleuths. The episodes, one featuring the Daleks, which would imply a Daleks Master Plan episode, would offer viewers a chance to travel back in time without the use of a TARDIS, but The Observer has learned that the owners of the rare rediscovered footage are not prepared to hand it over to the BBC, even as the clock ticks down to the 60th anniversary of the show's launch this month. Veteran film collector John Franklin believes the answer is for the BBC to announce an immediate general amnesty on missing film footage. This would reassure British amateur collectors that their private archives will not be confiscated if they come forward, and that they will be safe from prosecution for having stored stolen BBC property, something several fear. Quote, "Some of these collectors are terrified," said Franklin, who knows the location of the two missing Doctor Who episodes, along with several other newly discovered TV treasures, including an episode of The Basil Brush Show, the second to be unearthed this autumn. "We now need to catalogue and save these significant television shows that are out there. If we are not careful, they will eventually be dumped again in house clearances, because a lot of the owners of these important collections are now in their 80s and are very wary," he added. So, apparently, this particular person, who is not actually named specifically in the article, it's just veteran film collector John Franklin, who has given a comment about why this person has apparently not turned over these two episodes. As somebody who, of course, wants nothing more than to watch episodes like The Feast of Stephen from the Daleks Master Plan, I got very, very excited when I read this from The Observer. The fact that there could be two episodes out there, one of which features the Daleks, that we actually know about, they're just in private hands, and the private collector is not willing to hand over the tapes because of fear of legal repercussions for allegedly stealing BBC property. The problem with that, however, and I thought this while reading it, don't the BBC already offer general amnesty if something has just popped up randomly in an attic or whatever, or you can even hand it over to the BFI anonymously and they can act as a go-between between the collector and the British Broadcasting Corporation. If there was no amnesty, how did all of these clips from the BBC end up in the archives in the first place after being supposedly junked or lost in the 60s and 70s? This, just reading it initially, didn't make much sense to me, and many people agreed. Johnny Morris on Twitter said two problems with this article. One, there already is a well-established amnesty for returning missing film, and two, anyone afraid to return material to the BBC can hand it over to the BFI, who will act as a go-between and preserve the donor's anonymity. And when asked, does the amnesty include former BBC employees, Johnny replies, yes, the guy who returned Day of Armageddon, that's one episode of the Daleks Master Plan, was a former BBC employee. And even if there was some sort of a weird, legal issue that, oh, you may have stolen this BBC material, firstly, it would have been maybe in the 60s or the 70s. And also, what's to stop the private collector or whoever finds it from just saying, I found it in the loft, no idea how it got there, bam, here's the film print, I'm going to go. Or what can happen as well, what many private film collectors do, is that they give the film to the BBC or the BFI, they convert it digitally to add it to the archives and do whatever they want with it, and then the collector gets the film reel back. Even though the actual episode itself is still out there for the world to see, they still have the original film print that is part of their collection. So this is something that's been going on for several decades now, so this is quite interesting. So what on earth has happened with John Franklin, who is a veteran film collector? Surely he should know this. Apparently, The Observer did something a little bit underhanded here, and misquoted him here. So, Tim from the Missing Episodes podcast, which is a terrific podcast that I really recommend you should listen to, especially if you're into black and white Doctor Who, Regarding the article, I've spoken to John Franklin, and he has said that he was alluding to the same 2 episodes that Paul Vainses has mentioned over the years, and that he doesn't know what they are. He did not mention Daleks, and he has been misrepresented. Sorry to rain on everyone's parade. So I don't specifically know what these 2 episodes are, or who this Paul Vainses is. That's not my department. I'm not quite fully, in the loop of Doctor Who missing episodes, the community, or film collectors. That's not my deal. If anybody in the chat does know what these 2 episodes could be, then please let me know. But apparently these 2 episodes, they do not feature Daleks. So this here, saying that apparently one of these stories features the Daleks, apparently was just completely made up from The Observer. Tim also follows up. He also feels the tone is completely off, and when he has been quoted, it's out of context. What a mess. 99% of our conversation was about film is fabulous. He regrets being involved in the article and has asked for it to be pulled. This was 2 days ago. The article is still up. This is not an archive link. This is still the original Guardian Observer article. And John actually wanted a statement to be shared over the Observer/Guardian piece. So Franklin says, sadly, this article is a misrepresentation of the conversation between myself and the journalist, and most unhelpful. I've asked for it to be removed. I reiterate, 99% of the conversation with the journalist was orientated to film is fabulous and the issues facing film collectors with vulnerable collections. It is clear that these issues do not appear in the article. What a pity. If I knew the article was to be completely orientated to Doctor Who, about which I know very little, I'd have referred the journalist to Paul Vainses, as was the case with the journalist from The Independent who also contacted us for comment. Please do not place any emphasis on the content. The misquotes are glaring. I sincerely hope that this does not affect the Film is Fabulous initiative. So Film is Fabulous is an organization which is all about preserving classic film reels and celebrating the missing stories in the episodes, including the recent episode of Basil Brush that was found a few months back. So that's quite unfortunate. And also, I saw this article, this headline doing the rounds on social media, and then the replies were stuff like, oh, they're just worried that they're worried that the BBC are going to arrest them. They're worried that the BBC... it just became a vector for defund the BBC dogma, and also just anti-BBC bias on social media from reactionaries. I'm not sure if this was the explicit intention of writer Vanessa Thorpe for The Guardian here, but that certainly seems to have been what the mainstream reception, the mainstream reaction to this article was. So it got a fan's hopes up for 2 missing episodes from William Hartnell's era of Doctor Who. It turns out that these are 2 episodes that people already know about, but they don't quite know what they are yet. One of them was not a Dalek story, according to this article, and then John Franklin says that it was completely misquoted and completely misrepresented here. So that's a bit frustrating. Thank you, Evil Dalek, as well, for the £5 super chat. The 2 episodes being Hartnell's and has been known for years, and we might know what one of those are. Let's look at the clip. Oh, and it's even got a timestamp. Oh, no. I have actually listened to this one. So this is from the Missing Episodes podcast. This is Tim, whose Twitter account that we looked at earlier on. Hopefully this is a good timestamp and I don't end up just fully plagiarizing, but okay.
One final twist in the tale in that we have recently talked about and we'll talk about again. The notion that Paul Vanezis has spoken about that.
Paul Vanezis, I was mispronouncing his name because I'm famously uncultured. That's the trend of this live stream.
A film collector in the UK has 2 episodes of William Hartnell's Doctor Who. And how he described these episodes is that one was not on a list of episodes known to be returned from Australia in 1975.
For context, I don't know what that list is. This is not my department.
And the other one was. Now, he later issued a clarification to say that, in fact, neither were on the list of episodes known to be returned by Australia in 1975, but he didn't have the list committed to memory. He just thought it was on it, and it wasn't. Now, you have to do a bit of speculation here, but you have to wonder, what would you assume is on the list of episodes returned by Australia in 1975? But isn't, and you straight away go to season 3. So you might assume that the Massacre is on the list, you might assume that the Celestial Toymaker is on the list, and you might assume that the Savages is on the list. I'm knocking out the Celestial Toymaker because we know that at least episode 4 a copy of episode 4 was retained in Australia, where it was later found. There could have been multiple copies, but let's just keep it as simple as possible. Knock the Celestial Toymaker out. That leaves a potential for one of the episodes to be from the Massacre and one of the episodes to be from the Savages. So
I'd be so happy with... I obviously would be happy with any of them, but those two in particular, that would be very good. Winnie, why are you trying to eat the microphone stand?
There is potential for one episode of the Savages to be known about as residing in a collection in the UK. An episode of the Savages has been rumoured from time to time. We may never know.
We've even got like the fairy tale thing. So yeah, it could be one of those ones. So yeah, there are supposedly 2 episodes in Private Collectors, but this story from The Observer is just reiterating that and framing it so that these are like 2 brand new episodes, which is it turns out this was a false alarm. This was we've learnt nothing here, unfortunately. I'm so sorry, folks. Is it true that Winnie was involved in the JFK assassination? She'll never tell.